this hour. A massive fire has erupted in a Hong Kong complex apartment. So far, the fire has claimed at least 44 lives and has left nearly 300 missing. The Hong Kong police have arrested 3 construction company officials. 2 National Guard soldiers shot and critically wounded near White House in what US is calling a targeted attack. The suspect in the shooting has been identified as Ramanallah, who is reportedly an Afghan national. Following the DC shooting, US President Donald Trump says his administration would re-examine all Afghans who entered the United States. During Biden's term, Trump also denounces the shooting as a terror attack and an act of evil. Amid the escalating rift between China and Japan, US President Donald Trump urges Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi to avoid further escalation as per reports. Now, this comes as US aims to keep trade truce with China. British Finance Minister Rachel Reeves announces more than $34 billion in tax rises. This is on top of the £40 billion she raised last year. As a result, a large hit to growth of living standards is expected. 11 people have reportedly lost their lives in a deadly train collision in China's southern province on Yunnan. At least 2 people have been injured in the collision. Floods and landslides brought about by torrential rain in Indonesia's North Sumatra province kills at least 28 people, with rescue efforts hampered by what an official described as a total cut-off of roads and communications. A bipartisan group of US lawmakers is urging the Trump administration to reject Myanmar's upcoming elections, calling them a sham meant to legitimize the China-backed junta amid ongoing violence and repression. And China is reiterating its criticism of Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi over her recent comments on Taiwan, following reports that US President Donald Trump advised her not to provoke Beijing. At a regular media briefing, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Guo Jiakun said Tokyo's attempt to downplay or avoid the issue was self-deception, insisting that Takaichi's remarks were seriously erroneous and unacceptable to China. Beijing continues to warn Japan against any actions or statements it believes changes or challenges its claims over Taiwan, signaling no let-up in its diplomatic pressure. Hidekazu Sakai, who is professor of Kansai Gandai University in Japan, joins us live from Osaka. I extend you a very warm welcome and thank you for joining us here at NewsX World. Now, what do you see? How do you see this change in US stance towards Japan? We did see how Takaichi was trying to pursue Trump for siding with it as far as the Taiwan question is concerned, but Trump has clearly advised her not to provoke China further.
Well, I think you're citing Wall Street Journal's article, and actually the Japanese Cabinet Office denied that there was such a composition between the United States government and the Japanese government. And so I'm not quite sure if this is really true, if the Trump advised the Takaichi not to provoke China.
All right, and how do you say that? What information do you have to deny that such a conversation has taken place?
Well, it's a diplomatic negotiation that they did not reveal any detail. So I just cannot judge what they really talk about. But the problem was there was kind of a discourse. Japan is wrong and China is right. But China has been really working hard to create discourse that this is a violation of China's sovereignty. But to me, this is very ridiculous because, whatever China did to the United Nations, for example, the other day, saying that, according to the post-war international system based upon San Francisco Peace Treaty, whatever, and according to the UN Charter, and that China has a right to attack Japan without any UN consent. That was ridiculous, and then nobody would pay attention to it. So this is part of, to me, the part of sort of China's sort of how do you call it? Such a sensitive overreaction to this security issue, because Japan has never really talked about the geopolitical location of what is existential threat to Japan in the before. So this is the first time, and China has been really, really surprising. So China sort of didn't know how to react to it, because China thought Japan is always kind of a sit back and keep distance from Chinese security issue, doesn't say anything, and all China needs to negotiate is the United States only. But now we have two players in this region, United States and Japan.
All right, and what's your opinion on the fact that Japan is planning to hike its defense budget as far as the Taiwan question is concerned?
Well, Japan has been consistently increasing national defense budget, not just because of Taiwan issue, but it has been responding United States demands last couple of years. And this is not just Trump issue. This is about the United States, the security, the strategy in the worldwide. So this is not only for Japan, but also for the NATO members in Europe. All they try to increase the budget to at least 2 or 3%, and Japan is going to achieve 2% of GDP to the defense budget. Therefore, this is not really particular the moment.
All right, thank you for joining us here at NewsX World and sharing your perspective with us. And with that, viewers, let's move on. Now, Turkey's defense ministry has stated that any discussion on deploying a potential reassurance force in Ukraine will only happen after a ceasefire is achieved between Russia and Ukraine. Now, this follows comments by French President Emmanuel Macron, who proposed the force could involve French, British and Turkish soldiers. However, Ankara emphasized that while it remains open to such a deployment, the modalities must first be agreed upon. A Turkish ministry clarified that a ceasefire must come first, followed by an established mission framework, a clear mandate and an agreement on each country's contributions before any deployment can be discussed. Gilbert Doctorow, Russian affairs expert, joins us live from Brussels. Gilbert, broadly, how do you see this development?
Well, I see this as empty talk. The Russians have made it plain that they will not accept any foreign troops stationed in Ukraine. The whole purpose of the negotiations now is to reach a definitive settlement between Russia, Ukraine, the United States, and the European Union. And with such a settlement, there is no need for a force to be based in Ukraine to protect Ukraine, because there will be no reason for any further conflict. The whole assumption, underlying assumption of Mr. Macron is that this conflict will continue forever, and that Europe has to have forces stationed there forever. And that is totally unacceptable to Russia. And since Russia has won this war, it is logical that Russia will decide how the war is enshrined, or how the peace is enshrined, in documents that will be signed by all parties.
All right. I now request you to stay on, as I have some more information in this regard. In fact, viewers, let's also tell you that Russian President Putin has proposed a significant rearmament plan for the Collective Security Treaty Organization during the group's summit in Bishkek on November 27. Now, speaking at the opening session, Putin outlined plans to modernize the national contingents of the CSTO member states by providing them with advanced Russian weaponry proven effective in real combat. The rearmament initiative will take place under Russia's rotating presidency of the CSTO in 2026. First listen in.
Оно будет проходить под девизом «Коллективная безопасность в многополярном мире». Основные усилия сосредоточим на повышении боеспособности национальных контингентов и совершенствовании управления коллективными силами. Предлагаем запустить масштабную программу оснащения коллективных сил современными образцами российских вооружений и техники, доказавшими свою эффективность в ходе реальных военных действий.
All right, let's bring back Gilbert into the discussion. Gilbert, now we're seeing how both sides are amping up as far as weaponry is concerned. European Union is supplying weapons to its member states, and now Russia is doing the same for CSTO countries. What course should this take place going forward? Isn't the need for a ceasefire more pressing now more than ever?
Ceasefire makes sense only if there is an agreed end to the fighting that is permanent, not temporary. And to this be coming back to the issue that was discussed over the last months, when Ukraine, backed by Europe, insisted, and for part time backed by the United States, insisted on an immediate ceasefire without those unconditional. A ceasefire makes absolutely no sense if there is no agreed plan for the war to end. And so this is, again, empty talk. As regards the agreements that Mr. Putin has made with fellow members of this security organization, which essentially is the former republics of the Soviet Union, it is moral encouragement and support to them. It is not reconstituting an alliance like NATO to go into a head-to-head war with NATO. Nothing of the sort. These are, to put it in American parlance, toys for the boys. Since Belarus has received Oreshniks, it's understandable that other former Soviet republics would also like to get some of the nice toys that the Russians have invented and that have proved so effective on the battlefield. So he is giving them encouragement, and yes, of course we invite you in. And this is an attempt to not to create a body to fight NATO. Nothing of the sort. It's the interest here is to create solidarity and mutual respect among these former republics of the USSR, and to keep the United States out of that region. That's what it's all about. The United States wants to get into Central Asia to destroy the Russian and Chinese relationship with these republics. And by offering these toys for the boys, Mr. Putin is saying, stay with us and you'll be very well armed.
All right. How likely do you see is Russia going to accept the peace plan, given that today as well we've seen reports of Russia moving forward into the Ukrainian territory and capturing Vasikivka?
Well, the war is not over. And so somebody's going to move forward. The Ukrainians will move forward or the Russians will move forward. Since the Ukrainians are undermanned and are lacking in logistical support, since their major logistical hubs have been threatened or taken over by the Russians, I mean, particularly Pokrovsk and Kupiansk, and since so many of their soldiers now are becoming prisoners of war and explaining that they had nothing to eat and nothing to drink, under these circumstances, it's understandable that the side that will make advances is the Russian side, while the side that will be retreating is the Ukrainian side. That will not stop until the parties agree to a peace settlement to be defined in legal terms, but directionally similar to the first 28-point plan that was proposed by Team Trump. We will see. We will see how this develops. But the peace agreements have to recognize the reality that one side won the war and the other side lost the war. And anybody, particularly all of the spokesmen and spokeswomen for Europe who are saying this is a stalemate, are just spreading propaganda. It's not a stalemate.
All right, now with Steve Witkoff due to visit to Russia, Moscow next week, is the US going to really achieve its objective? Because as of now, it doesn't appear that Russia seems very pleased with the plan.
Well, it depends on whom you speak to in Russia. I have pointed out that there is a split at the top in the Kremlin over the sense of proceeding with back channels only and not involving the institutions in the United States and in Russia, which were created to conduct foreign policy. In Russia, that is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who have been totally sidelined and excluded, and whose chief, Mr. Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, has complained 2 days ago about this very fact, and has explained that the back channels that are being used, like Mr. Witkoff or Mr. Dmitriev for the Russian side, they are not following normal procedures to protect the confidentiality of negotiations. And by doing that, they're opening a gap which those people who are against concluding any peace are using to interfere with the process of negotiating a peace. And who is it that is interfering? The neocons in the United States, who are represented, sad to say, by the American Secretary of State, Mr. Rubio, and the neocons in Europe, which are 24 out of 27 heads of government and state in the European Union.
All right, interesting that you point that out. For now, thank you, Gilbert Doctor, for joining us here at NewsX World. And viewers, we now move on. We're now learning that Pope Leo XIV has arrived in Turkey for a 4-day trip, the first overseas visit of his papacy. He will meet President Erdogan, address Turkish authorities, and focus on Christian-Muslim dialogue in a country where Christians make up just 0.1% of the population. Now, the Pope called the visit a historic moment. His schedule includes a visit to Ataturk's mausoleum, meetings in Ankara, and travel to Istanbul later in the day. Leo will speak entirely in English and is expected to address regional conflicts, refugees, and possibly human rights issues. On Friday, he will join Patriarch Bartholomew in Iznik for the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea, promoting Christian unity. He will continue to Lebanon on Sunday. Well, we will be tracking that for you. For now, let's move on, viewers. A Russian Soyuz spacecraft has lifted off for the International Space Station with a 3-member crew on board, marking the start of another long-duration mission in low Earth orbit. The launch took place from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan earlier today. The Soyuz rocket is carrying 2 Russian cosmonauts and 1 NASA astronaut, forming a multinational team for the mission. The spacecraft is scheduled to complete an automated docking with the Roswet module of the International Space Station later today, ensuring a precise and timely arrival. Once docking is complete, the crew will enter the space station and begin their 8-month stay, during which they will support various research and operational tasks. Their mission is set to conclude with a return to Earth planned for late July next year. And now let's move on to some news from France, where President Macron is set to announce that France is restoring military service on a voluntary basis in the face of the growing threat posed by Russia and the risk of a new conflict breaking out in Europe. The announcement will come more than 3.5 years into Russian war, with Macron and other French officials warning that Moscow risks not stopping at Ukraine's borders. Reports suggest that Macron has told a broadcaster that he would be announcing a transformation of national service into a new form, but did not provide further details. France's Macron said a new national service will be instituted by next summer, which will be open to 19 and 18-year-olds volunteers. According to him, will only serve on French territory. France is targeting 10,000 young recruits by 2030. Let's now give you some fresh inputs on the Indonesia flood situation. Now, Indonesia's North Sumatra province has been devastated by severe flash floods and landslides triggered by heavy rainfall over the past few days. And now, according to the state agencies, death toll from Indonesia floods and landslides has risen to 61. The flooding has caused widespread destruction, leaving communities isolated in an urgent need of aid. 9 people are still missing and rescue efforts are ongoing as authorities fear the death toll could rise further. The National Search and Rescue Agency is working to locate the missing individuals while hospitals are treating the injured. The scale of the damage continues to grow as flooding has made it difficult for emergency teams to reach affected areas. And Thailand is also battling worst of the worst floods in years as military and medical teams race to evacuate residents and deliver supplies to submerged areas. In Hathai, southern Thailand's commercial hub, patients were airlifted from flooded hospitals, including intensive care units, while helicopters delivered oxygen tanks, water, and generators. The floods have caused 3 days of record rainfall and have claimed at least 33 lives across 7 provinces and affected more than 2.7 million people in Thailand. Nearly 50,000 people have been evacuated in Thailand and Malaysia, with thousands stranded on rooftops as strong currents hamper rescue efforts. Thailand's military has deployed boats, helicopters, and even the country's only aircraft carrier in relief operations. Officials are calling for more equipment to support ongoing rescue efforts as waters slowly recede. And that's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from across the world.